What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Kiskapades podcast. I have a very special and exhausted guest today.
Slightly exhausted.
Slightly exhausted. So, I don't know whether we should get right to it, but let me just let you introduce yourself first for the people who are listening to know who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Well, my name is Jonas. I'm a chef all the way from Copenhagen, Denmark. I'm in Kenya or Africa to set up a thing called Nomy, which is, in all fairness, it's a think tank derived to, focus on locality cooking and local communities, and also a way of looking into local foods, not only in just Mama's old kitchen, but in the restaurant business as well. So we kind of, try to push that offset of food only being, Italian or Chinese or,
which most of the locals seem to like. That's what you see on Instagram.
Well, most locals seem to like it, and most, travel agencies always, plan for it, and hotels are fueling it. In my opinion, it should be something else as well. So we've kind of trying to set that up. It was completely started by chance.
Where's the inspiration from? Because for most people, like right now, like the food bloggers, the pop-up things that restaurants are doing and everything. It's either for pizza, burger, and we actually we actually have burger week,
pizza week,
we
have beer week,
cocktail week. And we actually commemorate and celebrate.
And in all fairness, that should be in every place as well. But I just don't think it should be the only thing. So,
especially excluding all the other things that you do eat on a regular.
But I mean, I came down here on a holiday back in January, so it's only been like 6 months or 7 months, and just traveling around with my family and being a chef, I kind of dive into food and cultures and everything else. I kind of think that you shouldn't travel with closed doors. You should go and meet whoever you're meeting, and see the environment. And I was quite amazed, especially by the big cities like Nairobi and Mombasa, about the abundance of restaurants, and the food scene is incredible. Yeah. But I really struggled finding anything local. It seemed like the local African food or Kenyan food was done at home, but not necessarily done in restaurants or hotels. And for me, from my point of view and the way I've been grown up into the restaurant business, that seemed really weird. That in the way we've been taught up in Europe was that go and look what's outside the door. At least in the last 15 years, there's a thing called New Nordic Movement, which I've been great part of, which basically was taking all the old traditions and all the old flavors and then reinventing them and trying to do them in a new way. So we kind of get a hold on traditions and the flavors of your grandmothers, but you do them in a new presentable way.
With all these resources that are available around you.
You look what's outside your door instead of trying to import everything in. So I was just really weirded about that offset. Because the talent was there. I met the most amazing chefs out here, and also waiters and restaurateurs, really incredible people. And also, like, if you go to the villages or go to your mom's house or whatever, the amount of food preparation and talent that goes into it is immense. But it seems like African food was for home. And not necessarily for
going out
for the Masungus coming in, to see it.
And it's crazy because that's what most of the tourists want to actually taste. But they're like, where can we get the local foods? Where can we try this and that?
I think there's a big problem in that there is there's sort of an expectation that it's not as good, so we shouldn't serve it. I don't know whether that's something that just lies in a cultural belief that you've been lied to for too long, that it wasn't good enough. But at least it's something that needs to be addressed. And from my point of view of I've been living, breathing, working in restaurants all my life, and largely what we do in Europe would be to look not for the next big trend in another country, but to kind of fuel it from home. See, the next big trend should be locality. I mean, everybody's pushing for more sustainability, but you can't get more sustainability without looking what's outside your door.
True.
I mean, there's nothing sustainable about only using imported products or only using, for example, if you're in Denmark and all the restaurants there would be Italian, then you would use more tomatoes and cucumbers than we would actually produce.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing here. I think there was a huge gap between it, and I couldn't really work out why. So I have a good friend called Ephraim who lives here in Nairobi, and I called him up while I was on holiday and said, I need to meet some chefs. I need to talk to somebody, because I just couldn't work out why.
Yeah.
So we ended up inviting 10, 15 people up to a house. We just Airbnb'd this house in Lake Naivasha. Didn't really check it out. Turned out to be a humongous palace, way too big for us. So it kind of worked out, inviting, loads of chefs from Nairobi.
And everybody can actually just feel...
and we just ended up having the most perfect night of talking food and politics and drinking wine and addressing all the things that I found was weird and needed answers for. And I just kept asking questions about why as a chef would you not try to push for
local,
for your your foods. Where was it, and every single time we addressed it, it came up with the same answers, like, but I find French food more exciting. I find Italian food more exciting, and it kind of seemed like that the people that should be pushing for that that awareness didn't really do it.
They're actually not excited about it.
No, they weren't excited about it. They love going home to mama. Of course, but there was nobody like reinventing it or pushing the envelope. Of course, as you dip into it, you see there's a lot of restaurants doing small stuff and interchanging. Of course, it is a thing that's on everybody's mind, sustainability and locality, but it's such a small amount that keeps coming in. So I like that they're doing it, but it should be done more. And I came home for holiday, and I was walking around that one, keep getting it in my mind, and I've started talking with chefs at home, and said, I'm going to take some time off, and I'm really going to dive in to see if I can address if is there a problem, is there something we could do, why, just by curiosity, and it kind of seemed that what was missing was that feeling of it being good enough, or that it was sexy enough, or something like if you go on Instagram, everybody was taking pictures of burgers and fancy French cooking.
Trust me, pasta.
And I said, well, I want to go down there and try to see if I can help do that, because not only can African food be as sexy as French cooking, the abundance of flavors and the traditions that have been incorporated, especially into things like Kenyan cooking, is so immense. But somebody somewhere along the line has told a story that it wasn't as good. And somewhere along the line, people have started to believe it in an extent that even the professional that really works with it say, but I really just want to have Italian food, or I want to do that. So
people actually look forward to go and try, because like I did a poll, sorry to cut you off, during restaurant week I asked people like on my Insta stories, like what kind of cuisine would you guys actually want to see me like either trying out with some friends, because I normally take people out and we just try different dishes, and a majority was Asian cuisine, and what was it, Italian?
Probably
most likely, and I think Italian. Those were the two high rankings. And local foods, they were not even nowhere in the list.
No, and they never were. I mean, if we go back, let's say we go back 20 years, food in the north, in Denmark, Norway, Sweden, it was the same thing. Mama's kitchen was comprised of, boiling meat, boiling potatoes. Of course, some restaurants were pushing for it, but then again, it was, French restaurants. So it was done in that sort of way.
It's their culture.
And then, thankfully, we have some fantastic, innovative chefs in Europe that kind of push for that envelope. And you have a place like Noma, one of the highest running restaurants in the world, you know, pushing that envelope of doing northern cuisine with the offset of going back and doing the traditions and the flavors of, you know, 100 years ago. And that, you know, that recipe I see needing to work here. I see a great deal of need to address that sustainability and locality and, you know, traditional flavors does have a merit. You know, it can be served not only, you know, side by side with any cuisine in the world, but it can top it.
Yeah.
But we need somebody to start fueling it and start doing it. And I think the best way to do that is, you know, to create an awareness that this could happen. So that's what we're going to try to come down and do. And one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to create a pop-up restaurant already next month in November. We'll be doing 2 segment nights, so it's basically 8 nights. Within next week, I think, we'll get everything up and running, and you can check everything out online. Until then, you can go to Instagram and just check out by Nomy. That's where all the recipes are.
And trust me, like even just the food styling that you've done,
Yeah, but I mean,
just changes everything.
I think
everything.
I think from coming in to look at it, it was my point of view that you should try to show all the people working in restaurants that it could be done in a new way. I mean, I'm not coming down to teach anybody how to cook African food. That's, you know, not even borderline racist. It is, you know, pretty smacked at, you know.
Okay, true.
Know what it is.
It makes sense.
But
yeah.
you know, the things that we have an abundance of is that we've been taught to do creativity, to do innovations, to look at problems in another way. And I think that's the missing link. That, you know, if you have restaurants or hotels mainly looking at, let's call it continental cooking, or it's, you know, or Chinese cooking, then if that's where the majority
What's
of the
the
jobs
other word
are,
we can use for that?
You're gonna make me say colonial cooking, but I do mean it. You know, there's something about that word.
Yeah.
You know, but it is, you know, it's a horrible word to use. But
yeah,
it
it would best describe what you're trying to explain.
It is. I mean, it's you know, it's for others, by others, in a country that, you know, that shouldn't, you know, be there. It shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
You know, if you go to India, you expect, you know,
There's a lot of
Indian
Indian
cooking.
cuisine,
if
from
you go
street food,
Yeah, that's what I
from
mean.
where everywhere.
And so is there here, but it seems that it doesn't have the same shelf. It's not got the merit of everybody
It's
else.
Because I've seen people travel to like Thailand, and you know, like for us it's a bit different or strange, but you know, you'd see like even people from like Kenya, they do enjoy eating like the small what frogs, is it lizards?
Yeah.
Like but they're just presented in a very, like you said, if you go to a restaurant and the person who's serving you is not excited about what they're serving you.
You'll see it straight away.
Yeah, but if you're going on a street like, you know, a buffet, and the person who's serving, they're like, yo, would you like to try this? Would you like to try this?
But I think it all comes down to, like, if you've been told over and over and over again that on a broad scale, what you have, you know, is not as good, or it's just seen as less.
Yeah.
Then that's that mindset you have, and then it doesn't really matter if you're the best chef in the world. You're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to present anything because your mind is, I'm really sorry. You know, here you go.
This is
just
we only have.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Instead of getting down, and then you do an Italian dish and say, look at this.
Yeah.
But you know, you need to change that. It should be you know, the consumers asking for more sustainability and locality, but it should be the restaurants pushing for that change.
Yeah.
And we kind of figure out that, you know, we can't really, you know, say that it's just a question mark. So that's why we came up with Nomy and said, okay, let's see if we can like put it on the highest level. So the first pop-ups we're doing is aiming for the stars. We are just doing a ridiculous amount of recipes, all done in the most difficult ways I could imagine. We're
using all the local.
I mean, right now we're doing the pop-up's going to be doing in Nairobi, and being in a city, we had to kind of scale it out a little bit. So we're only using produce that's within 200 kilometers.
200 kilometers. Okay.
That's it.
Mhm.
Because of Nairobi's size, we kind of needed to just go out there.
Yeah.
When we leave Nairobi and go out in the country, we'll scale it down to maybe 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers.
And even
But it's
in
just
Nairobi,
a way, it's just a way of getting of giving yourself, somewhere to work from, and also just to pressure yourself. Good ideas and creativity doesn't come from abundance.
Yeah.
It comes from a closed box, and you
Yeah.
have to think outside the box.
and the best thing about Nairobi, it's because you have like a blend of so many communities. So I can only imagine the amount of like just data collection, even if it's for research purpose before you implement all the flavors.
There's so many things to dig into. I mean,
Yeah.
we've instead of addressing, just chefs, basically already now we've interviewed roughly between 400 and 500 chefs all over Kenya.
500 chefs.
Just to get a feel of what's missing.
Yeah.
You know,
what's your thoughts on this?
How do you better yourself? Everybody says, I go to YouTube.
Yeah.
That's how I do. Okay, but then you're only being taught, again, a certain recipe.
Oh, yeah. And
So
then
you're not
it's
really- not
everything
really-
that's
Yeah,
foreign,
just a
it's not.
recipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a recipe base.
Yeah.
So you're not really being taught how to, dive into anything, new, or taught, how to interchange things.
Mix this and this,
Yeah,
get this flavor.
Yeah,
Mix-
you're being taught how to do another recipe. That's good enough, but you're not being taught the theory behind it. So we're going to be doing the showcase and kind of see if it's possible. Hopefully fuel everybody out there to just start cooking more locality based. And I hope
Yeah.
that every chef in this great country will just start posting pictures of, local foods.
Man,
get it
local
on.
foods. Like I haven't been doing it, but I shot something for a client a few days ago, and it's so crazy that I'm just saying this because, like, after we started talking before setting up the interview, and she's always flying in so many different countries, eating like a lot of different foods. So we did a charity thing, and then afterwards she was just asking like the people around, like, yo, I mean, we're all hungry. I'm hungry. Can we go get something to eat? And then they were like, we're not sure whether we can get something nice around it. But she was like, no, I know there's a place to eat.
local.
Yeah, I want
Yeah,
local food. Show me Mama Akibanda. Show me a mama who cooks like something nice. And we just went somewhere next to the road and we ate the most like amazing ugali. There was sukuma wiki.
Yeah.
There was chapati, dengu, and all these foods.
And then just sit and smile and laugh.
Man, listen.
Because that's
The
what food's supposed to
conversations
be
that
about.
we were having there, everybody was so happy, and
But that's what food's supposed to be.
we
But there's
posted on
absolute-
Instagram,
Yeah,
and
but
we
there's
posted on.
absolutely, there's absolutely no reason why that
Yeah.
shouldn't be the fueling thing, in the in the cuisine or in the world. It should be, restaurants should in some way or other cook from a local point of view. Otherwise, there's really no need for traveling, is there?
Yeah, true.
I mean, you're supposed to blend. Techniques and trends
I'm
should
eating
be blended.
Italian food, and once I travel to Italy, what am I gonna eat?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had enough pasta in Kenya anyway.
Yeah.
So,
No, but that's the thing. So,
but
we kind of
what do you think makes like just the local people, apart from like just saying like somebody who's convinced us, like theory-wise, but why do you think people just don't glorify the food the way it should be?
But I don't think.
Because I don't think it needs somebody from outside
No, but I'm.
to tell us that that your food is not good enough.
No.
Yeah, but where do you think, like, maybe for us, just like locals, don't see the value in it? Yet anybody who comes and tastes our food will tell you. Like, I have a
it's
Japanese friend who can't get enough of like just nyama choma, and I'm even telling her you can't be eating like a lion. You need to mix like your greens and everything else. You're just like, I just want nyama choma because I can't get this in Japan.
No.
And it tastes so different here and it's full of flavors. But that's the thing. I mean,
Yeah, but again, I would hate to say that it's a thing that's also tapping into other social economics, but there is this way of being taught how to think within certain parameters always.
yeah.
That, for example, in Europe, we fuel innovation and creativity. Even in school, we have, small children are taking, quite serious if they come up with an idea saying, I think you can clean water with, this. then the teachers will actually listen, and if they have a good idea, they'll go to the state, and that might end up as a water treatment plant.
There anything that's been implemented from children, like in Europe?
Oh yeah, many things. I mean, there was, I think there were 12 or 13-year-old. I think it was last year or 2 years ago. They actually came up with a solution to do a water solvent, just by working around it. They had an idea. They went to the teachers, and they actually implemented these new types of filtering systems.
Yeah.
We've got a group of young kids now trying to do cigarette filters, but doing it in another way. So
who has even allowed them? First of all, I mean cigarette filters. So
but everybody knows the cigarette filters are lying everywhere. And they're wondering, why don't the grown-ups do anything about it? And no grown-ups doing anything about it. So the kids will sit down and say, but shouldn't you just use something else? And of course, the answer is that. Yeah. The answer is that
problem
simple.
solving.
So they just went about looking at different types of fungus and everything else to see if they can come up with something that's sustainable, and they have. So I think that's that mindset thing that
we should be started like from an even.
Well, you should be. How do you say it? It should be a plus to be creative, or to be thinking outside the box. And I know that is coming. I know in the Kenyan school system, things like this is actually starting to be implemented. But there is a lot of people that have just been taught to read a book, say what's inside the book, but don't say how you think about the book, or what kind of thoughts you kind of get out of it.
Don't try and discredit anything that you're reading from the book.
And I think that entire mindset is one of the main problems. There is so much talent. There is so much talent overall, but somehow it's being stopped from utilizing their full potential. And it's also being stopped by your own mind. Saying that if you're never being taught how to go for it.
Yeah.
If that's up, if that's not something you're pushing for, then nobody's really going to do it, because nobody sees the point in doing it.
Why should I try something different when it's gonna be discredited because it's supposed to be like?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Why are you serving me ugali like this when I'm used to having ugali?
And if it comes to food, it's a really addressable thing that if you're being taught a recipe, then for the largely amount, you're pretty strict in that recipe. If I go to my chef students, it takes about 2 years before they even start learning recipes. They learn the techniques behind the recipes.
For 2 years?
Yeah, but I mean, the school system in Denmark to become a chef takes about 4 years. And you get.
I think it takes a couple of months.
Yeah, but you get.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I think it's a little longer, but the practical experience and also the theory. But there's a lot of theory behind it and technique learnings, and I kind of gathered now that that some of the things that would be missing, is that abundance of knowledge that's available in Europe. So. What we're trying to do is say, okay, can we go in and address, let's say, technique learnings? Not showing everybody recipes, but showing how to, different techniques. How can you benefit from that? How can you then interchange and create new recipes? How can you go out and find local produce and make that into new recipes? How can you revive the Kenyan or the local food anywhere in the world? But you can only do that if you've got a bag full of, tools to do it.
Yeah.
And we need to make that tool skill set, available. And from a chef's point of view, I get kind of upset because all chefs pretty much think of themselves as one family. You can go anywhere. It's like musicians. You can always go and play with another musician. I think there's a language they talk, and it's the same thing with chefs. That you always find something interesting to address. You can always learn something from each other, but also then it kind of pisses you off if there's addressability in saying that, well, there's knowledge that I have available that's somehow not being made available for my colleagues just because they're in another place. So what we are definitely shooting for is to say, okay, we do the pop-ups, we do all these things to kind of show that it's possible. What's the next level? Well, the next level would be to create a grad school system. Let's do a course-based learning where you don't learn recipes. Again, Mzungus are not coming down to teach anybody how to do African food.
True.
But what we can teach is the technique classes that lie behind it. And when we started interviewing so many things, like so many people, and it's both restaurant owners, it's waiters, it's chefs, we kind of asked the same things. And one of the big questions, like, for example, pretty much every chef school in the world, they teach how to do béarnaise sauce. And I asked, well, what's the knowledge bit in that? And they said, well, I don't know what you mean. I said, but the knowledge bit of that is not that you can change a herb. The knowledge you've gotten out of that recipe is that an egg and an acid at some point can hold a fat. That's the knowledge bit. That's the physics part.
So that you know if you mix this and this, it's
so,
going to give you...
So there's a good chance, 2 years from now, if you're standing in a kitchen and you know you've got an egg, you can look for some kind of acid. It could be a passion fruit instead of a vinegar. Because you know now that, an egg...
It's going to add some sweetness to it and just give you almost the same thing, but it's innovation.
But it's a way of getting that tool skill set, mixed up, so you have the right tools to create those things. So you don't just interchange, recipes. You get the knowledge to go out and reinvent them, and that's the important bit. So I think that's what should be done in large scale, is make that knowledge available, and that's what we're going to be doing.
I mean, what else do you think you guys are going to implement in the curriculum if you're teaching people?
Well, I mean, what we really want to do is set up a physical grad school. Basically build a school, and we're going to do it in the middle of Nairobi. We're going to do it next year, 2020. Of course, that would never be able to handle the amounts of people that we think can benefit from a course base in a grad school. And also we're talking a grad school. So we're talking people already in the industry that have jobs, but that needs a way of becoming better, or utilizing more skills, getting that skill set on. That also means that, better jobs, better wages, because you can better yourself. And the way we want to do it is to both do, normal schooling at the school, but to do it as a course base, which means that we can do it at different hours. We can do some of it digitally, so you can take courses online. We want to do courses that can be both for, as I said, waiters and chefs, but it can also be from, restaurant owner. So if you need another course on economy, on how to run your business base, that's the sort of things that we can bring to the table, because these are the things that we've been doing, well for many, many, many years. And what I think can benefit immensely would be to do small courses and big courses, but that you can interchange, so that you can basically build, a portfolio of, I need that course, I need, that could be butchery. It could be some kind of going into, we could do a course completely on from A to Z and how to cut up a cow.
Yeah, it's not just about buying meat.
No. But then we
knowing.
But then we know, and then we deep dive into saying why would that cut be done like that? Why should you do that? Why is this part more fatty? Why does this contain more acids?
What has more flavors?
Yeah, but exactly. Yeah. And also, what would be the best cooking techniques to do with it? Thank you so much. But I mean, there are positives in that, but just in that direction as well. We are thinking, there are negative things that we need to, consider. For example, if you go to the market right now, there will be a price just by kilo of beef. And your mama knows that she needs to go there early in the morning or be the first one to get the good part, and it all costs the same. But if we start to address that one cut is better than another for one thing,
you can still go for that specific.
We're also kind of opening up for a place where some cuts might go up in price. And that's a negative. So that's one of the things that we need to address as we develop these programs, is that we don't want to have a negative offset in any way. So some of the things need to be addressed. We also need to have school segments on that is probably the big buzzwords. If we're talking the school system. But we would like to have things like a course called creativity or called innovation. Which probably won't have anything to do with physical restaurant work,
Yeah.
What would be, ways to change your mindset on how to, solve problems, or how to, look at, recipes as the example, but, giving loads and loads and loads of empowering tools so that you become comfortable in making those decisions as you go. And I think that's going to be a really big part of doing the whole Nomy school system, is to fuel that creativity that's inside everybody, but to make it available, to kind of break those glass molds and saying that it's not even possible to do it. It's dead on your right. You should break out of your comfort zone. You should, it might be a horrible dish. It be, there's a good chance the first 200 things you try are gonna,
That's true. I've had some bad food. I've had some bad food.
No, but I mean, you learn from your mistakes. And the same in a restaurant. Don't put up the good review. Put up the really bad one, because that's the one you won't have again.
Because that's what somebody actually needs to know, because the positives are always
positives
already
are
there.
already positives. You can't really use the positives for anything else than just patting yourself on the back.
But since we're speaking about that, aren't you concerned about, because now you're coming to introduce or just show people to appreciate more of the local foods, right? And we already have these companies and restaurants that have already spent a lot of money with their campaigns that you see burgers on billboards, you see burgers on Instagram, everywhere. It's just food, pizza burger, and all these other foods. Aren't you concerned about how they're gonna take this? Because they're now you're pushing and what we've taken, we've spent a lot of money on and years to try and make people start enjoying.
Well,
and kind of addicted to some other people.
Yeah, but not even slightly. They are, it is a big thing, and it's a big industry that revolves around, also glorifying, fast foods and other types of food. But no, actually, I'm not scared of it at all. I think that a good a culinary, system or in any city should be able to support, all those things, but it should also be fueling the locality based. Say, okay, we don't need McDonald's to change their, menus. That's fine, but let's then make sure that, when you go home, you buy local produce, for that. And if you pressure, a thing like McDonald's to some extent utilize local produce, they're not going to spend all their money importing all the things. They're going to try to get it. Yeah. Of course, that's a little harder, but I think that the food scene in total can support both things. I don't see the real fast food change as somebody that's a worry. I see that if you change consumerism, if we can prove that the sexiest thing on Instagram is local cuisine,
local food.
And if you get 2 million likes on that, I bet you that there'll be scouts from every big hotel looking at that trend, and they'll change their menus and consistency, which will also have the other rings, because then you won't be pulling in, tons and tons of chefs like me to come up with African recipes. If that's the new thing, you'll employ more African people to do those recipes.
And most head chefs now can actually, because I'm just assuming, if we have all those international dishes and stuff, we'll always have a foreign kind of almost.
There is definitely an
the
offset.
Ratio is.
Yeah, there is. The ratio, but that's also true in many other countries. Yeah. But of course the ratio of it only being fueled, and a French restaurant will have a guy on who knows French cooking.
Definitely.
And instead of teaching, it's also a bit difficult to say, okay, but then we spent 10 years on 2 chefs from Nairobi to make them as good as the guy we can just go and buy.
Yeah.
So of course, if you're putting on a French restaurant, it's much easier just to bring him in.
Bring somebody from France.
But that means that won't stop. So if the jobs that will be created are only for let's say French, Italian, Chinese cooking. Let's say not indigenous cooking. That's a fair way to say it.
Yeah.
That creates this circle that's not supposed to be there as total, because then the culinary schools will then have to say, okay, if the jobs that are available are only at the hotels, then of course they're not stupid, so they'll have to create a schooling system that can teach you the skills you need to get that job. And if the jobs are only in the hotels, the teachings you're going to be doing in culinary schools is going to be recipes for hotels, of course. But that also means that not only is the new people who have been trained and coming out to the market as the newly chefs only using recipes and produce that is not indigenous, but they're also just fueling that segment, so it's not going to be going around. So you'll just end up with loads and loads of people only cooking with non-indigenous produce, doing recipes that have never been near the continent, and of course that needs to be there, but it should not be the only thing. You should be able to push that envelope and get more locality-based flavors into it, and also make sure that it's it's good enough, and tell everybody that it's good enough.
True.
But that takes skills and it takes knowledge and
Time.
and time. But most importantly, it takes the availability of that knowledge.
But how are you gonna push this? Cause I'm just trying to think. Cause like I said even earlier, it sounds good in theory.
Yeah.
But who are like some of the voices that you're gonna use to actually
Again,
push this? Cause
Again,
now
shouldn't
it's all social media as well.
Yeah.
That's
But-
where everybody's advertising. And how do we make this trendy? Is it gonna be through
No,
recipe, styling, or how I mean?
No, but I mean, recipe and styling is one thing. I mean, we're going to push to show that it's possible, but we're also just going to give an abundance of support to every chef and every restaurant in this immense country to start fueling it. Everything on Instagram, all you guys out there, you should just be taking photos of your mama's kitchen and then go and make new recipes of it.
Make
That
your
should
mom
be
happy
it.
as well.
Yes.
I mean,
and also make her scared, because as soon as you start flipping around with ugali and doing it in the wrong way, she's going to get upset.
oh yeah,
Yeah, but it should be fueled that way.
Yeah.
Again, it makes no sense for us to be just a group of Danish chefs coming in and yelling and screaming about locality. That makes no sense.
Still,
What
it
we
might still work strangely
Yeah,
in Kenya, I know, but
No, but not just
but
in
I know
Kenya.
the angle you're coming with. You don't want it to be that. You
I
want
want to stand on a field and put my arm around every chef that needs my help, and I'll support every idea he has, and I'll lend him all my knowledge, and I'll make it available as cheap as I possibly can, because that's another thing. If you look at other courses and other ways of doing it, it always ends up being for a small margin.
Yeah,
You can't really make that available.
yeah,
But then you're not going to change anything. I mean, let's look at it in a completely another way and say, okay, how cheaply can we produce content that can be positively fueling? Can we create recipes? Can we do a co-op where everybody starts to share your recipes? And that's why we came up with Nomy. Right now on Instagram, we've just opened up for By Nomy, which is the hashtag or the site where
I'll
you
make
can go
sure I
and see
put
some
the
of the
link down below. I'll
yeah,
make
you
sure
can come and
just-
see. You can come and see some of the things that we're doing, in really taking it way away from what the traditional cooking looks like.
I've seen some samples, and I can just definitely tell you, like, if I was to
You're
take
still
you,
weird about that ugali ice cream.
No, wait, even forget the ugali ice cream. Like, if I was to take somebody right now, just think about it. If I'm taking you on a beef ugali date, or even if it's a meeting, or if I'm taking somebody out on a date, just picture what it is, and then after you picture what it is, just go on the podcast link on the info, tag Nomy, or just click on the link for Nomy, and go to their page and see the beef ugali, see the presentation, and just see how crazy it will blow your mind. And you can only imagine the experience of having that. I would take thousands of pictures of that.
Yeah, but I mean, we're only doing that to just showcase that it's possible. It's just
possible.
we're just trying to fuel that little spark. I mean, I'm
Can
hoping
make African food sexy.
make African food sexy again, but most importantly, just create that little spark. I mean,
Yeah.
talk food revolution. Go for it. It's yours, but you should do it. It
Because
should
we
be
have the
fueled.
ingredients, we have the recipe.
You have the ingredients. You have the talent.
Yeah.
You have everything abundantly, there. The only thing that's missing is that little spark, and I'll be happy to provide it. And I know millions of other people will do so as well.
Yeah.
I mean, use the Nomy site as a thing. I mean, share everything. Send us every little picture or recipe that you have, and we'll share it. 20,000 times if we can, because that's what we need. We need everybody to kind of pat themselves on the back and say, you know what, this is good enough, man. It's not even good enough. Let's press for the next thing. Let's do the next recipe and share it. Not just say, no, this is mine. I made a little secret.
Yeah.
Go on, man.
And you know how chefs are with their secret recipes. I mean.
But actually, in Europe, in Europe, recipes work together. Restaurants work
Please
together.
break that down for me.
No, but they do. I mean, the greatest thing I've ever encountered in my life is that I've traveled the world, and especially in Europe, just visiting other restaurants and being invited in and being shown the secrets. That's how we grow. We make everything available. You can go to a menu card and you'll see another restaurant being put down because they've used some of their recipes on it. So you just go in and you'll have, that name, that's his salmon, and that will be a feature on the menu. Instead of saying that I've stolen that recipe, or people go around being scared of poaching. You shouldn't be scared of anything. If 20 people end up stealing your recipe, be really proud.
Come up with something
No,
else.
and then come up with something new. Exactly.
Yeah, because that's how you're supposed to be if you're an inventor. I mean, just keep inventing. Plus, isn't it a good thing if people start?
People should start.
Shows there's something good about your recipe.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I would be dead happy if I found out there was loads of poaching of my recipes getting everywhere else. I would be happy. You don't really need to steal them. Just call me up. I'll happily share them. I spell and write completely horrible, so you'll probably mess it up anyway. It's knowledge and skills should be shared. Techniques should be blended. That's what the world should be like, and it makes me irritated that that knowledge of that type is being withheld somehow.
Yeah, people are keeping to their little secrets and stuff.
There's power in unity, and that's also right for things like food.
And something very important, even just with that, because even for me, the biggest connection that I get, even with food, is because anytime I go and visit my mom and eat food that can trigger a memory from my childhood, that's a whole different experience. There's no restaurant that can replace that for me. Can't be replaced. No. It can't be replaced. So it would also be just a good thing, because now the older generation would see a reason to actually you can actually get involved in this. This looks interesting. Can we just come up with something slightly different? Try make this sexy as well.
But you also make the older generation, a thing that people want to address. You want to go home and learn. You want to talk to your mom and dad.
Yes.
You talk to grandma and say,
how
did you do that? How was that when you were a kid?
Why does it taste like this? And if I go somewhere else, it doesn't taste like. Something like chapati and ugali. Yeah. Those are signature dishes, but they're kind of if you go to a different house, you might taste ugali that tastes completely different.
Ugali is always a funny
well.
thing. As soon as we started changing, some of the looking with the recipes, I got so much yelled at. Because
you shouldn't change this.
No, but as soon as from my point of view, if you start putting everything, cheese and butter into an ugali, it's not an ugali anymore. Then it becomes a polenta, and it's been done before.
I don't even know how my body would register that.
No, it just becomes a porridge. That's it. So we've kind of, but just by flavoring, just by using salt and pepper in ugali, you have people screaming at the start saying, "Then it's not ugali." You need to turn it until it smells like burnt popcorn, and that's it. But the funny thing is that I'm a huge nerd, so I just dive into history and agriculture and everything else. I've got a great contact at a university called Mary. She was a professor in agriculture, and some of the things that I've talked with her about is also the diversion of where foods can come from. And I came up with this thing about ugali, which might piss off somebody, but still.
Oh, for sure.
There's a thing that you're not supposed to flavor ugali, but if you talk to
agree.
If you talk to some of the older generation,
Uh-huh.
they'll say that by some months there was more flavor inside ugali when they were young, and that reminiscence. Okay, so I went history-wise and I started looking at agriculture, saying that type of corn has, for the longest period, been growing or being grown in a Central Africa piece, and that means like mid Kenya and down Tanzania, that part. We can to some extent say that ugali probably indiginated from right there.
Yeah.
Okay, recipe would probably be handed down. Let's say it was 2 cups of water, 1 cup of flour. Then turn it at the stove. Blah blah blah.
Because you
Okay.
smell popcorn.
Then there is one problem with that. I ask you, would grandmother's grandmother had used the prized drinking water that came, were kept in barrels, or would you just go and get the water from the lake?
Yeah.
You'll probably get the water from the lake.
Most likely.
What is 80% of all the lakes inside that area comprised of?
Salt.
Saltwater lakes.
Salt.
So probably ugali was flavored a long time ago
And
with
it
salt.
makes sense because definitely even now if you visit like up country, if guys like have like maybe probably a borehole or they're fetching water like still from the streams and everything, it will definitely give it a completely,
It will give you a completely different flavor. But that's a fun thing. But as soon as you talk about about things like salt and also if you go out and see all the different the different, I don't want to use the word tribes, it's an irritating name, but different communities.
Yeah.
Then you kind of dip into things like the cool thing about the humankind is that every community on the planet has come up with the same solutions to the same problems.
Yeah.
Except maybe, Inuits living on top of a big freezer because they didn't really have to keep things, for that long time. They could pretty much just bury it in ice. But everyone else has come up with sun drying, salting, or smoking. And those are the flavors that have kind of been disappeared. So now if you go in and you see, you buy smoked salmon and you say that I like that smoky flavor.
Do you have something? Again, it's salmon. I need to know.
No, but I
of all.
bet you if you go 100 years back,
Yeah.
you would have smoked antelope.
Mm-hmm.
They would use smoke, and that flavor base is in your indigenous food.
Yeah.
But somehow it's now been taken over, so smoke only belongs to the north or Italian pastrami or something. That's where that flavor now belongs. Why?
True.
It should belong.
True.
It should belong
True.
to anybody else.
Yeah.
And the same with salt. If there's a high concentration of salt lakes, there's a pretty good chance that grandmother's grandmother cured things in salt to make it last longer, so it didn't and by utilizing growing with let's call it what it is, but with the colonial way of looking at things, we ended up using products to get to the market to get more sales, and that kind of lost a lot of produce that was being indigenously used.
Yeah, now it's just like mass production to.
Well, that's the thing, and a lot of things got lost in translation, basically.
And you can also like now just imagine even with what you guys are just trying to teach and everything, in terms of like just even health benefits.
Oh yeah.
Of all these traditional like food,
Health
spices,
benefits by traditional,
theories.
yes. But I mean, if you just look at basically in the last 5 years, not only in Kenya but all over the world,
Yeah.
like everybody has gotten more aware of nutritions, which right literally you can go and see that people in Kenya are eating more vegetables because now everybody without a doubt knows that it's probably a good idea to
Yeah.
eat vegetables.
You want to look good, be older and still have like the energy
what I
to do all the things. I mean, you do need that.
And that's a fun part. So if you look at history and agriculture in this land, then there's just a big deficiency in calcium and vitamin B and C, which quite literally comes from not eating flower herbs anymore. So in the older days, you would eat pumpkin leaves. You would eat the leaves of cassava. Not more. It will be like a salad. It will be like a spinach. It will be used, but as sukuma wiki. But in terms of getting now, the idea is to get the produce that can last the longest. That means that instead of the leaves, it's the pumpkin that's the important part because that can go in a truck and that can be sold. But as soon as that happened, and it wasn't just for the village anymore, then of course there was a deficiency in calcium,
that's
because
deprived already from what you actually.
exactly. So I'm not saying that everybody should go back to to how it was 200 years ago,
But it makes sense.
but we shouldn't repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah.
And if everybody keeps on eating food and produce that is not indigenous to the place where they're living, there are going to be health issues. There are going to be things that is not not being handed out. I mean, I bet you, I haven't done a study, but it's just a bet. You can call me out on it. I'll buy you a beer. But I bet you that if you pull out things like ugali and just replace it with potatoes, within a relatively short time, you'll have a big spike in food-related diseases, because the cultural aspect and the way of building nutrition has been done around corn.
Yeah.
And not other carbohydrates. So for us to just start interchanging everything like madmen, that is going to have an effect. So we need to keep that addressed, and that's what restaurant means. It means a restoration. It means a place where you go where people have knowledge, and they can prepare your food so you feel better.
Yeah.
That's where the whole word comes from. So it doesn't mean just taking your money and handing you, here's a burger and go home and feel sick.
Yeah.
You should ask for more, and it should be a responsibility for all the chefs and for all the restaurants to at least push for something more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that with the locality brand, you will also push for more, sustainability. You can't get more sustainable than buying what's down the road.
Yeah.
Instead of inviting everything
boosting,
in.
I just think now it will even get to a point where you make these foods so stylish, and even other people from different countries, they'll be like, you know what, we can't really grow these from these ingredients in our country, but can we at least ship them from Kenya and actually try and make these meals?
But of course,
and we can actually start now shipping
But what do you think if this happens? If you guys go and do it, if you crave locality based and makes it the hottest thing to hit Africa ever, why within 5 years we should see chefs from Kenya going to London to work at the hotels to become head chefs, because now it's African food that's the hot ticket. That should be it.
Yeah.
I mean, those sushi chefs are coming in to do little sushi shops.
It's happening with all the other different
everything else.
Yeah, apart from now the local African foods.
But you don't see that. You might have, of course, you would have an Ethiopian restaurant in London. You'll have those little things, but you're not pushing for that. That broad spec locality branding of the different areas and the different tribes, and that should be the one thing. It should be what's fueling the entire thing.
Interesting. Then, are there some specific? We've mentioned ugali a lot.
Yeah.
Are there some specific foods that you've noticed, are just outstanding? Just from the Kenyan cuisine.
I wouldn't necessarily go as far as saying ugali is outstanding. It's a force to be reckoned with,
Yeah, because it's just it's a household,
it's a household
signature
thing,
kind of food. So, I mean, of course, even for me, I wouldn't call ugali outstanding, but it's a signature dish in so many houses, and we don't want to make any moms angry.
No, but I mean,
but it can be reinvented into something. It can be,
or just refined. It shouldn't. I think we're trying to keep it pretty simple. That's we addressed earlier that we came up with an ugali ice cream, which probably scares a lot of people.
Yes. I want to see and I want to taste.
But then again, we served it with pickled fruit in Changa. So
wait.
So the whole thing might be completely off.
So wait, this is ugali ice cream, and you did what?
Well, we did.
I just want to know that I heard the right thing, so that people don't get it twisted.
I said pickled fruit in Changa.
Okay. So I hope you guys know what Changa is, because if you're Kenyan, if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. If you don't, basically for all the Mzungus out there, don't go to the real proper bar. Go and ask behind, and you'll get probably one of the worst liquors in the world. It's fantastic in a really explosively weird way.
Oh yeah. But it's crazy, because when you say it that way and you see all these different things that you're implementing with all the local ingredients, it just changes the whole game into something completely different.
And I think, I mean, doing things with Chang'e is just for fun. You know, it's
Yeah.
not really pushing anything, but it's more lines of, you know, cracking those, you know, molds again. It's just saying that, you know, it is possible to do. We shouldn't necessarily, you know, do cocktails just with, you know, vodka and rum. If there's somebody there trying to, you know, utilize the skills, why not try to use those, you know, traditional flavors or even traditional spirits? I mean, and there's, I gotta admit, also something fun about, you know, getting a room of A-list clients together for a fancy dinner and then serving, you know, hoodlum bootleg. You know, that's it is, you know, it's a fun thing.
If you do it the right way, and like you know, I'd mentioned this behind the scenes. All you need to do is, like, you know, just tell them, you know what, guys, if you can try, let's play a game.
Yeah.
And tell me what you can taste in this and this and
Yeah.
this. And
Well,
you know,
I mean,
after they have, like, you know,
we had to come up with a, you know, with a menu card
Yeah.
for doing the pop-ups, and I really wanted to do, and I had that thing about doing Chang'e. Ever since I saw you know, there was this segment, I think it was on CNN, about where they said it was the dangerous spirit, and, you know, it was being caught by jet fuel and everything else. You know, it was really scary.
Man.
So the first thing I said when I
that
got
was
home,
insane,
I said,
yeah.
I needed that.
You what? That's what you said?
Yeah, you know, we need to work with it. No, but just, you know, it has to be.
Just the curiosity that triggers
but,
something else.
You know, since I'm based in Copenhagen in Denmark, you know, it's a pretty long way. So last time I was here, I started looking into, can I get, you know, a couple of gallons safely made somehow? And then I spent a good month convincing the Danish customs to let me import those gallons in.
And they did?
And
Give
they
you
did.
permission?
At the end, they did.
Wow.
But I had to pay for a health license where they test everything to see that it's not, you know, that there's no diseases in it and everything
Did
else.
it pass the test?
Yeah, it was good.
Okay.
You know, they said it was incredibly high in alcohol, but, you know, and in yeast there was a lot of a lot of yeast still in it.
Yeah.
So the you know, the guy doing the testing, he said that, you know, thus, you know, people fart a lot when they drink it because there was so much yeast still in it. But anyway, we got it home, and then I got to work with a good friend of mine who's also going to be in, you know, a big part of Nomy. We're a team of, you know, 6 or 7 Danish chefs, and also my business partner Michael, Mikkel. He's not called Michael. Probably that name would translate into Miguel, but he's not really, you know.
Yeah.
He's more of a
Not Italiano.
Not really that, you know, Italian. But we set about doing a menu card using only Chang'e, and we needed a place to test that. So we ended up doing, you know, one of the fanciest nightclubs in Copenhagen, and then for an hour we sold, you know, only Chang'e cocktails as a hype thing, and we charged a bundle. I'm not even going to say. Let's say that to get only Chang'e cocktails, it was in the excess of $100.
Wait, what?
And everybody just loved it. So it was really cool, just getting like the fanciest people in you know, in town, running around on, again, you know, hoodlum wine from you know, from Nairobi.
But that's insane. You see, I mean, it just shows, like, you know, it's all just perception, and, you know, you can just change
It's perception,
so much.
and it's also storytelling. You know, there is something behind, you know, if you have that knowledge, again, if you have that skill set to utilize the things and do it in a safe way. You know, I'm not just jumping on board and saying that, you know, I know nothing about doing this and I'll just try.
Yeah.
I know a lot about what I'm doing. So also, if I have an alcohol that way, I'll do everything possible to check out if it's safe, it's vulnerable, and then I'll go through the merits of pairing everything up flavor-wise. So it's not really, you know, walking into the deep water. I know exactly where my feet is going.
Yeah.
But it's never been done before. But that's not the same thing, because I feel quite safe, because
You
in
know
the
what
back of my backpack I have the
yeah.
knowledge to do
the
it.
confidence comes with, like, just experience from...
And it comes with knowledge. It comes with skills.
Yeah.
So you know, that's the thing that we need to teach people, is that, you know, if you fill up your little treasure bag of you know, knowledge and skills, you can press every border. You can do anything with it.
There's so much that can be done.
Yeah, it's not going to be, you know, a game. It's not going to be, you know, some things, you know, don't work out, of course. You know, I've done in the excess of thousands of different things in the kitchen that never worked out. You know, I've burnt things for hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think.
That's good information for us to know as well.
No, but I mean,
But that's how you gain
that's
that
how you
experience,
learn.
yeah.
And, you know, and
Yeah.
you piss off the restaurant owner every time you don't make it work. But that's how you learn. You don't, as I said, you don't learn from just positives. You learn from saying, okay, I can't walk that way. Let's try that way. If I can't walk that way, let's try that way.
Let's try this. Yeah.
And again, if you have the knowledge skills, dipping back to that thing about the Banessos, if you know an acid will react like that, it's the same thing. Also, when we're doing like the courses, for example, like there's only like 6 or 7 types of fish in the world.
Mm-hmm.
There might be different species, but to an extent, if you know how to cut up those, fish, with the skeleton, you can pretty much use any fish in the world. You've already got that knowledge. So that's what should be taught. Is
I love salmon. Is that a good thing?
Oh God,
What? I do love salmon. So
Yeah,
I mean,
okay. Okay. We said we wouldn't go
what's
really
that?
political.
What's that pose for? First of all, because I mean, I do like salmon. So I mean, is there something I need to know?
You're going to get me to go a little political now, because basically, if you're talking locality-based things,
Yeah.
using salmon in a place like Africa is sort of insane, isn't it?
I don't know. I just know. I mean, it's rare to get, and
It's rare to get because most of it comes all the way from Norway.
which is a good thing, right?
Not necessarily, because everybody on Earth knows salmon, and everybody is craving it, and it's a cheap and affordable fish, and we've kind of been taught that it's it's a good fish and it's a fatty fish and it works.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, there's Canadian, there's we got salmon coming in from a lot of places, but just by the abundance of using that fish, really makes a negative impact. Because a lot of the fish that is being done like that is being done in, it's being done, as you call it, they're being farmed. And a lot of the farming that's going on, I'm not saying anything about Norway. I am not. I love Norway. Jättebra. But there is some of those, farming parks where things, are being done in a not sustainable way. They're using a lot of, bacteria killers. They're using penicillin. They're using, growth hormones to get it up and running. And of course, everybody, if they dive into that, will realize it. If you look it up on the internet, you'll realize that they are these, things. And
Just ruining salmon
yeah,
for
but
me.
I mean,
do you eat salmon?
Of course, I eat salmon, but I would always
Or it
go
has
for,
to be through a history of or maybe just knowing
Yeah,
where
but
my
I
salmon
would
is
go
coming
for
from.
I would go for sustainably caught salmon. But again, just eating it, I'll still fuel the I'll still fuel that want for getting it. But I think it's a problem that no matter where you go in the world, if you go into I was in the mountains in Sri Lanka, and everybody was eating vegetarian food, as you do because you're in the mountains. And then I was talking to some tourists, and they said, "Oh, I got a little bit sick because that salmon I got last night was not good." Are you insane? What are you doing eating, salmon in the middle of, the highlands of Sri Lanka? It's not supposed to be there. So again, as a consumer, you should ask more questions about. You should ask more questions about where.
I'm thinking
why
in Kenya we're supposed to have salmon. How are we supposed to?
No, you're not supposed to have salmon. At some point, some Mazungus probably tried to bring it in and let go in a mountain stream. I would imagine, but.
Oh no!
But
So
why
I'm not eating salmon again?
But is it the fatty salmon or is it smoked salmon that you like?
I think it's smoked.
Yeah. Okay, so basically I would differ that it's more the smoke and the fat and the fish that you like. Okay, why not try and smoke tilapia then? Why not do it in that way?
Okay, yeah, true.
I mean, another thing
But you see, also the thing is, what we're just even talking about, you'll find it's not like I can move around and get good tilapia anywhere, not unless I'm close to
a lake.
Yeah, Victoria. Now there the fish is just a lot.
But you got
even funny thing, I've had right now in Kenya we're actually importing most of the fish, which doesn't even make any sense.
Well, you just said Lake Victoria, so already there you've already done import.
No, not from Lake Victoria.
Yeah,
it's actually coming from different countries.
But if you go Lake Victoria, the fishing is being done in Tanzania.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm
But
talking
it's
about.
still an import.
But it's still an import. But I'm talking about like mass production of like
Yeah, I
fish
know.
somewhere. That's what's like apparently easy
Yeah, it's
to get in,
easier
and it's cheaper.
but
And
I
it's
mean,
cheaper. But is it?
I have a good friend in here, Ifram. I think I've mentioned him earlier.
Yeah.
He's building a farmhouse in Zanzibar, like a little farmhouse to do testing about it. He was in the middle of the jungle and like one of those little, just a little tiny shop where you can just get a little box of water and everything else. And there was a cooling case with frozen Brazilian chicken.
Okay.
Because at some point somebody decided that it was cheaper or easier just to get frozen Brazilian chicken all the way out there, and that's a huge problem. That because it's easier to farm somewhere, and because of the global economy should be shared and everything else. But we should really, as consumers, start to question why, how, and when, and saying that we need some. I want salmon. Okay, but then you're going to end up with having, the bad kind, because if you're all the way out here and you want it sustainable or you want it cheaply, you're going to end up with, the none so good kind, because otherwise it would be so hugely expensive to get it there.
Yeah, and I'm not trusting anyone who's like, shipping it from random places. I have to know where it's coming from.
Yeah, but you know where it's coming from. But if you create a want that you should have things like salmon sitting in the middle of Nairobi, you're creating an export system where you get products from way out, but in order for you to have the money to go and buy it at a supermarket, it has to be done in less than perfect conditions, otherwise it's going to be too big of a product, it's going to cost too much.
True.
So
for business purposes, it wouldn't make any sense.
Every time you've got a product that will travel the entire world and still be affordable, it tends that it's not being produced in a normal, sustainable way. Of course. I mean, if in Denmark a banana costs 2 Danish crowns, which is absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. We don't produce bananas. It doesn't take much to think that they're probably not, to a great extent, being produced in a very sustainable way. Because they're going to be flown in, from
kudos to you guys.
No, but from way across, oceans in 20 countries.
Yeah.
And if they end up in mine and they cost like 10 cents, that'll probably be the comparisons.
Yeah.
If you think about it, that of course that's not a good thing.
True.
And that's what I'm only pushing for, saying we shouldn't change that. We can't change the politics around that. But we can change the consumer ways we're using it, and
because we have a perfect climate to even like make so many of these things. So why not just work with what's actually?
I'm from Denmark. It's a horrible. I mean, the summer we have is the best summer in the world.
Yeah.
Probably the greatest week of our lives, but it's a week.
And then after that,
it's either fall or autumn. That's it. We produce the most excellent strawberries at that exact time. All things come together. Now, if I were a farmer or a consumer living in Kenya, that's the things I would look at. So you've got the climate and you've got the agriculture to get all those stuff at the perfect time. But it needs the consumer to want it, and not just go into the supermarket and never ask a question. I've just been in the supermarket here. There was really tiny section where it says Kenyan on the groceries, and then it says Tanzania, and then it says something else, or it says South Africa. And kudos to South Africa, but South Africa is still a long way from Kenya.
Facts.
I mean, it is a pretty big continent.
Yeah.
So even just doing it that way and saying but it comes in on trucks. Yeah, but it's still, you're passing a lot of land and a lot of produce before
but can
you get there.
actually produce even that in a nice, sustainable way.
Course.
That's where.
Of course, you should also interchange, and global growth and global economy should work, but it should not again be the only thing. You should, as consumers, ask more questions about where the produce is coming from.
Yeah.
But also from a point of view of restaurants, you need the restaurants to start fueling locality-based food.
There's a very nice lady who has a company called Green Spoon Kenya.
Oh yeah.
Have you met her?
Yeah. Juliet.
Juliet is amazing. So I think, you see, even when we're having this conversation and you're talking about all those things, somebody like her, she's just also pushing that in a very...
Absolutely love her. She was actually at the first dinner we did in Naivasha, and somehow she kind of interconnected with everybody. And she was there, sitting at the table talking food and revolution, and was pulling in the same things that we are saying.
That makes sense. Okay, so
and also some of the other people we're working with right now is we've got a really great working relationship with a catering company, an event catering company called Spes Catering Limited, and Esmeralda, who's like the head honcho there, is absolutely amazing, and the chefs that are running it, Nathaniel, who's her head chef, is fantastic. But again, they create wonderful foods for the consumers that they want. And if it's corporates, they'll come in and ask for a specific thing. And that's what they'll do. But I know that they would love to do more locality-based things. They would love to go into deeper things. Right now, they're doing lots of fusion. So they're mixing recipes in, which is a perfect thing to do it. But these are the types that I really like working with. And also, some of her chefs and waiters are the ones we're going to be using and working with to do the pop-ups next month. So all the recipes are being developed with local talents, because again, I'm not African. I don't really know what flavor I'm hitting. I'm just going from what my knowledge is about certain production types and history and you get a lot of teaching, and reading books about, indigenous tribes and people, and my mind works in then creating, new dishes from what I encounter, and I still need, loads and loads and loads of local talent
and information. So now, I know we're almost running out of time. We have like 10 minutes.
It's perfect. Good 10 minutes. And that's actual 10 minutes, not as I'm learning Kenyan
it's not
time.
Kenyan. It's not Kenyan 10 minutes. 10 minutes because the camera will go off after 10 minutes. So, I don't want us to miss anything that, any info that somebody might actually need on the podcast, especially in this conversation. So what else can you just let people know about Nomy as we just wind up the podcast?
Well, to start with, you can all go on Instagram and just go to Buy Nomy, and then you'll see some of the things that we're doing. And I know you can also just probably somewhere here or
I'll put the links. You can
find it.
I'll put the links on Apple Podcast, Castbox.
That's an easy way of addressing it. We are also going to be doing a million small things and different pop-ups. We're going to be doing, we've got plans to go around we're doing testing in, small local buses, just in the middle of nowhere. We'll probably just pop up with, the truest sense of a pop-up restaurant, and just do tastings just to get people's awareness out. Of course, we're going to document everything and just get it through to you. We're also going to, start throwing up recipes. And as I said, we really want all of you guys to get involved and share your little secrets and share your little wants and tells about that type of thing that you like, and we'll support you in every way we can. We can also go to our website. It's basically just a landing website right now, but it's called Gastronomic, but with a what do you call it? A line between gastro and nomic.
I've forgotten what.
That little thing, that's a straight line between it. And then go and check that out. We'll put that up on Instagram as well. And that's basically just a landing page that teaches what is Nomy about and where we're going, what we're doing. And of course, from I think it'll be Friday, we're working with things like Yummy Magazine and Eat Out.
Amazing people.
Just to get the knowledge out there, and they're going to also be coming.
And they have the perfect network with all these
restaurants.
They have the network,
and they also have the platform where they can actually create a system where we can get to you guys. We can make this available. So the pop-up restaurant is going to be running next month for 8 nights. So it's going to be starting on the 13th of November, and tickets will go on sale, well, hopefully before the weekend, I hope. But, stay tuned, and we'll just keep throwing everything up in the air, and let's see what comes down. but we're definitely not leaving. We're coming in, and we're coming in. First time around, we're coming in 6-7 people from Denmark, and the team we're teaming up with is roughly, I think, up to 30 chefs and waiters. Just also doing it as a course for them. You know, the first ever Nomy course is going to be done live as a restaurant. So it's also going to be, you know, quite a challenge for all the people coming in, because we're going to build the recipes around their, you know, their wants and tells.
Yeah.
And then we're basically going to be putting that recipe straight on for the consumer and do a 10-course dinner.
10 course.
Yeah, 10 course. I think we're up to 10 course. It might be 15. It might only be 12. But let's try to meet in the middle. So yeah, roughly 10 courses.
Yeah, I think with the locals you have to take them like with baby steps. I mean, because but it's a good thing. But it's a good thing because like now you just open people's minds in a whole different way. And even from just that one pop-up experience, if somebody comes there, I mean, it's just going to show them like a whole different meaning too. What we're doing. The
next pop-up we do could be a community-style kitchen in the middle of Mombasa. It could be in the national parks. It could be somewhere else. We could change everything. The whole idea is to move that showcase pop-up thing around you know, the entire of Kenya. And every time we do so, we'll completely change, you know, the menus and the offsets of it and the entire concept of the restaurant. And we'll do it with a new set of local talent. So again, the whole thing will be tied into that community and that, you know, way of cooking just there. And then we'll try to put our spin on things to see how much we can address, you know, what's possible and what's not possible. But most of all, it's about fueling that little spark and hopefully create, you know, a huge food revolution. I mean, that's the word.
And I mean, if you can also like just include some, you know, influencers who are really into this kind of thing, it would definitely boost like just on social media and create more awareness. Because it's just like a crazy, amazing thing that, I mean, I don't even know how I can explain it.
I think that the way to look at it is that gastronomy in any country in the world is a triangle. It's a pyramid. And that little top part of influencers or high-end restaurants, or, you know, the people that everybody looks at, you know, everybody wants a McCartney dress.
Yeah.
So if we can get those people at the very top, I know who you are, but if we can get them to start talking about locality-based cooking, the next level will then say, okay, you know, that's what's in. We'll do it. Next level, we'll do it. And within, you know, relatively short time, when you walk into a supermarket, you'll have a little brand that says, you know, if I buy this jam, I'll buy locality-based foods. And that's an implementation that really works.
So now, I mean, we're clearly way out of time. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the people before we wrap up? Because, you know, here's the thing. Once you start the whole pop-up and everything, I have to come and do like a follow-up podcast. Of course. And we can just talk about the experience with just actually what's actually happening in the pop-up or something.
Well, I mean, I'll leave everybody to kind of make up their own minds. But, you know, it is possible to do these things and it should be addressed. And from a point of view that I really, really profoundly mean that knowledge and skills should be shared, always. And techniques and flavors should always be blended. That's the only way we keep moving forward as human beings. And if not, you know, we just keep on rolling the same way. And that's just a continental breakfast, and that's the boring thing in the world.
I mean, I wasn't pointing for you to look at the camera, but I was saying, you know what I was saying? Like, that's the title of the podcast. That's the title. That's the title of the podcast. So, I mean, I can't thank you enough for just coming through.
Thank you. And thank all of you.
I mean, I know it. Just shooting this behind the scenes, I don't know if you guys would. I can actually share the story another day.
Blooper reel.
Oh yeah, it's not for today, but it's just been a hassle. But we've made it work, and you know, I can't wait for you guys to actually start implementing this.
We can't wait either.
So
basically, your mom was right.
Oh yeah. Okay, so guys, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Castbox, Twitter, Instagram, where else haven't I mentioned? Make sure you subscribe and just give us those likes. It shows that you appreciate the content. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. It's a Kisscapades podcast. Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you, Nomy.
Thank you. Thank you so much.